our next speaker, Eric Bailey, brain scientist, author of the book, The Cure for Stupidity, which he's going to be talking to you about today. Eric, welcome to Phoenix Startup Week.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great time.
Thanks so much. So we will be doing a lot of interactivity throughout the session. And so if you see on the screen here, I'd like you to go to Poll Everywhere, or pollev.com/EricMBailey422. And there's a question there waiting for you. How are you feeling about today's session? Go ahead and let me know. We'll go ahead and drop that in a couple different places in Whova and in the chat here on Zoom, just making sure that everyone has a chance to go to this, create a little username, and then go ahead and fill out that first question. And then we'll get going, because this is infinitely more fun when we engage with each other through the Poll Everywhere link. So I see people starting to fill that out. I love it. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, we're going to go to pollev.com/EricMBailey422, or you can text the number, or you can text EricMBailey422 to the number 22333. So we're going to get started here in just about one more minute. Let some folks get logged into there, into the Poll Everywhere. pollev.com/EricMBailey422. Create a little username and then let me know. First question is kind of an easy one here. How are you feeling about today's session? So go ahead and let us know there. All right, wonderful. So my favorite quote of all time actually comes from Albert Einstein, and he said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Now, this is often misquoted as Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. He actually never said that. He said this. And what he means by that is that as adults, as humans, we have this natural tendency to develop patterns of behaviors and habits. And then sometimes we get into trouble. And then to get out of that trouble, we employ the same patterns of behaviors and the same habits, which makes no sense. And so if you want different outcomes, then the process needs to be different. And so one of the ways we know in which the process is different is if it feels different along the way. So this session is designed to feel different so that you get different outcomes. So I'm not going to start with an exercise in explaining who I am or why I deserve to be here. I actually want to start with an exercise in third grade thinking. So in a moment, I'm going to put a phrase on the screen. And what I want you to do, wherever you are in space, is I'd like you to read that phrase out loud. All right, we're going to read it all together. I'll be reading along with you, so you can just kind of follow my cadence. All right, so to make sure you understand what I'm talking about, let's go ahead and read what you see on the screen now. Ready? 1, 2, 3, read the phrase. All right, I'm just going to assume you did it with me. All right, here comes phrase. 1, 2, 3. Fear of being a failure is one of the most effective forms of freezing innovation. Another is fear of being successful. All right, that's pretty deep, but totally not the point. Congratulations, you've now graduated third grade. We're going to move into fourth grade. And in fourth grade, we're going to start working with numbers. Now, in a moment, I'm going to put the same phrase back on the screen. And what I want you to do is I want you to go along and I want you to simply count the number of F's that appear in that phrase. All right, so count the number of F's. This orange dot here, this is a countdown timer. You will see this disappearing as time goes by. We're going to give you 15 seconds to accomplish the task. I don't want you to read out loud. Don't want you to count out loud. Keep it to yourself, because fourth graders cheat. Someone will steal your answer somewhere. All right, same phrase on the screen, 15 seconds to count the number of F's in the phrase. Everyone ready? 15 seconds begins now. And there's time. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want you to enter into the poll. I just dropped the link there, pollev.com/EricMBailey422. And I want you to let me know, first thing is, what is your level of confidence that you have the right answer? And I want you to tell me how many F's are in the phrase. So on a scale of 1 to 10 for confidence, I want to know 10 is like, I'm absolutely certain, and 0 meaning I've got no clue. And then tell me how many F's are in the phrase, and we'll do some work with that. All right. I see people entering those in. Fantastic. If you haven't yet logged into the Poll Everywhere, please do so. This session will be infinitely more valuable and fun. I'll go ahead and drop the link in the chat. You can go ahead and do that, or you can text Eric. I'm going to go ahead and type this in for you. Eric M. Bailey 422 to the number 22333. So if you want to text and participate that way, you're welcome to do that. All right. Let's see. I see a bunch of people working on it. Some people still working on it. Fantastic. Keep going, keep going, keep going. All right. As these are coming through, I want to share these results as they're coming. Let's see how people are doing here. All right, how many F's are in the phrase? We've got the leading answer is 8. About 40% of us say the answer is 8. All right, and then looking at level of confidence, okay, very high confidence. Okay, fantastic, fantastic. But looking at this, we got someone who said it's 7, some say it's 8, some say it's 9, some say it's 10, some say it's 11. Okay, well, hold on. We're gonna maybe put you back down to 3rd grade here if we can't count. It's 2 sentences, 4th graders. All right, no worries. As it turns out, there are 12 F's, 12 F's. What's going on? Okay, before you think that I'm lying, or the one person that actually got it right, before you think that we're lying, where are they? So we have, let's go through them here. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we have 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, so far so good. I think everyone's got those. And then we have 9, 10, 11, and 12. 12 F's. What is the F's? What the F? All right. Before we talk about what's going on, I want to introduce you to a very large number. That's 11,201,000 bits. Now, I like to do tangents off of tangents. So a bit is the basic form of computer information. It comes from the phrase binary digit. So binary digit squishes down to the word bit. Now, bits are the ones and zeros of computer language, right? So as it turns out, brain scientists have discovered that our eyes, or our visual system, take in the equivalent of 10 million bits of information every single second, right? That's lights, darks, depth, focus, etc., right? Colors, right? 10 million bits of information every single second is coming through our visual system to our brains. And then our sense of touch brings another 100 or 1 million bits of information, right? That's all the textures we feel, hot, cold, all that visual or that sensation, like touch sensation, tactile sensation, right? Our ears and our noses bring another 200,000 bits of information, followed by our tongues or our taste buds, another 1,000 bits. So all told, our sensory system is sending 11,201,000 bits of information every single second to our brains. That's the amount of information our brains are processing every second. But as it turns out, the maximum amount of information that our brains can consciously process is only 50 bits of information, right? 50 bits of information. Sorry, they're flying here, right? Which means that almost all of our processing, 99.99995% of our brain's processing, is unconscious. And so to expedite cognition, our brains take shortcuts, or what psychologists call heuristics, all right? Now, the shortcut that your brain took in this situation was fear, that's an F. Failure, that's an F. Of, that's a V. And your brain skipped over 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of the F's in of as V's. Now, I teach what are called the principles of human understanding. Essentially, these are 22 principles that are the brain science behind leadership, communication, collaboration, and relationships. Now, when I talk about relationships, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, although it can be applied in that arena, but I'm talking about anytime two humans are relating, that's a relationship. And if you understand these principles, you can be a better, more effective human, leader, etc. Now, we don't have time to go through all 22 of the principles. I only have about 45 minutes. It will fly by, I guarantee you. But if you are a geek like me and you want to dive deeper into the brain science, you can grab my book. It's called The Cure for Stupidity, Using Brain Science to Explain Irrational Behavior at Work. All right. But we are going to go through a few of the principles. And the first one is called the illusion of certainty. Now, the illusion of certainty is our brain's propensity to project certainty in the world, even if there is none. So when I asked you how confident are you in your answer, just about everyone was like, yeah, I'm very high, 8, 9, 10 in confidence, very high levels of confidence. And only one person got it right? Most of us got it wrong, but we all had very high confidence. That's the illusion of certainty. Our brains like to project certainty. And the more intelligent you are, the more successful you are, the more likely the illusion of certainty is going to play a factor in your everyday life. Now, just quick word of warning. Even though you know about the illusion of certainty, it will still come back to bite you. This is not something you learn about and it goes away. The illusion of certainty is always there. All right, we'll come back to bite you. Okay, let's move into 5th grade. Let's work on some economics. All right, I want to know, what is the first U.S. company worth over $1 trillion in market capitalization? That's $1 trillion. There's a certain age group that gets and loves that joke. All right, I want to know, let me know which is the first US company with over $1 trillion. Open up that poll. I'm going to give you a couple of options, and I want to know what is your level of confidence. So is it Amazon, Apple, Exxon, GE, Google, Microsoft, or Walmart? Give you multiple choice here. All right, let me know which of these is the first US company with over $1 trillion in market capitalization. All right, let's see here. Let's see how our startup community is doing. All right, some people doing it. Go ahead and jump into the poll everywhere, pollev.com/Eric M. Bailey 422. Go ahead and enter your responses here. Let's see how people are doing here. It seemed like the number one answer right now is Amazon. Amazon, all right. Then followed by Apple, GE, and Google are all tied. Looking at the levels of confidence. Much more skewed to the south. Much more skewed to the south. Excellent. Okay, that means you're learning. Congratulations. You're learning. You're learning the rules here about the illusion of certainty. Okay. Well, as it turns out, the first U.S. company worth over $1 trillion is Apple. Apple Inc. Apple Inc. Congratulations, those of you who got it right. Now, question for you: if I showed you the Apple logo in a lineup, would you recognize it? All right, this is a pretty simple question. Almost everyone gets this one right here. But I want to know, would you be able to recognize it just on a scale of 1 to 10? How confident are you be able to recognize the Apple logo? So go ahead and enter that into the poll, pollev.com/Eric M. Bailey 422. I've just dropped it there in the chat. Go ahead and click on that, create a little username, and then go and participate with us. All right. Let's see how people are. This one always ends up going a little bit faster, right, as we go through. All right. Looking at the responses here, we've got, all right, 100% of the people say yes, and they're 10 out of 10 confident. I love it. I love to see it. All right. So very high confidence. Everyone's going to be able to recognize the Apple logo. I love to see it. Please tell me which one of these is the Apple logo. What you're experiencing right now is the illusion of certainty fading away, right? I just warned you a few seconds ago that the illusion of certainty is going to come back and bite you, and boom, there it is. You're actually experiencing something that is the space between the illusion of certainty and the reality of newly presented information. This space is what I call the oh crap gap. Now I call it the oh crap gap because that's what your brain says when all of a sudden the illusion of certainty fades away and you're like, oh crap, maybe I don't know. Now, I asked this question all over the country, and I asked people, I show you the Apple logo, would you recognize it? And just about everybody says, yes, 10 out of 10 confidence. And then I show them the options, and they're like, oh, crap, maybe I don't know. I even did this one time in Louisiana with the National Conference of State Legislators for a conference and for a speech. And the speakers directly after me were from Apple corporate. And so they sat into my session, and they still got it wrong, right? That's what I'm talking about. The illusion of certainty is ever present. Now, I do know that there are some very high detail people that cannot move forward with the session until they have resolution on something like this. So if you would like to let me know which of these is the Apple logo, please feel free to let me know in the poll. Which one is it? All right, some people already jumping in here. Fantastic, fantastic. I see number 6 and number 9 are leading the way. Fantastic. All right, number 1's jumping in the poll here. Number 9's pulling ahead. Here comes number 3. There goes number 3. A couple people saying number 3. A few people saying number 3. I feel like I'm doing horse racing announcing. All right. And here comes number 8. Someone suggested number 8. Let's see how we're doing. Number 9 is the leading answer with 45% of folks so far, followed by number 3 and number 6. Followed by number 1 and number 8. All right. Now, if you said anything other than number 9, you would be incorrect. So congratulations to those of you who got it right. But getting it right is not the most important thing. The most important thing is, what did it feel like when you were presented with all of the options? And the reason I talk about this is you may come to a session like this and say, I know what to expect. I know what you're going to say. I've been to so many of these kinds of sessions before, right? I'll give this my minimal attention. Well, maybe that's the illusion of certainty at play, because the illusion of certainty makes us say things like, I know. And I want to remind you that maybe you don't. Now, I'm not saying you're always wrong, because that's not true, but I am saying you're not always right. And the reason that matters is that the only things in life we can learn are things that we don't yet know. And if you come to a conference like this and you say, I know everything, let me tell everybody everything, well, you're never going to learn anything. You're never going to grow. We should be actively seeking that which we do not know so that we can grow. What would the world look like if we spent more time in what I call radical curiosity? It would fundamentally change our world. All right. Now I can introduce myself. My name is Eric Bailey. I'm the president of Bailey Strategic Innovation Group based out of Phoenix here. We've been in business for about 5 years, so I guess I'm kind of leading the startup phase. But we're based in Phoenix, and we do a lot of work around the country. We've actually been recognized as one of the fastest growing communication consulting firms in the country, which is a very, very cool thing because our methodology is different, as you can tell. We do things differently intentionally. I actually got my start in consulting doing international change management work with Cotter International. If that name sounds familiar, it's probably because you've studied business. It's named after Dr. John P. Cotter, Harvard professor of 50 years, literally wrote the book on change management. And when I first met him, he sat me down and he said, Eric, consultants are the enemy, which is something weird for someone who owns a consulting firm to say, talking to his newest consultant. He says, they come in and they tell you what you already know, and then they charge you an arm and a leg. He says, I want my firm to be the anti-consulting consulting firm. I'm not going to come in and pretend to be an expert in your business. I'm an expert in my methodology. And if we can marry your expertise with mine, we can have powerful results. And that's how I learned how to do consulting, with a dash of humility, not coming in and saying, I know how to do your job better, because I don't. Right? That'd be foolish. But what I do know is my methodology. And I know that my methodology can help if we apply it with yours. And so the mission of my company is to serve those who serve. We do a lot of work all over the country with people in service organizations, the military, with municipal servants, all sorts of people, nonprofits, et cetera. We're here to serve those who serve. Right? And the vision of my company is we want to change the way the world communicates. I don't know if you've noticed right now, but we're losing the ability to communicate with one another. Fundamentally losing the ability, right? We're disconnecting with each other on social media, right? Specifically, I'm talking about Facebook, right? So we have this thing called unfriending, right? We unfriend each other on Facebook, and we're literally cutting each other out of our lives, right? Saying, because of this disagreement, usually about politics, right? It's no longer worth my time or energy to acknowledge you exist. Right? And we keep doing that, right? And if we do that over and over again, and they're doing the same thing too, but if we keep doing that, we end up surrounded by people who think like we think and know what we know. And if you remember, the only things in life we can learn are things we don't yet know. And we're only surrounded by people who know what we know. Well, again, we stop learning. In fact, this phenomenon of the unfriend is happening so often that unfriend is now a word in the Oxford English Dictionary. That's a problem. That's a problem. And I truly believe that if we understood how each other operated on the human level, we can engage with each other differently. All right, let's keep going through a couple of principles here of human understanding. The next one is called the power of distinction. All right, so distinction is really, really important because it affects the way in which we engage in the world. So if I were to say, what color is the sky on a normal, sunny, cloudless daytime day, what would you say? The sky is blue, right? Well, there's a researcher by the name of Guy Deutscher, and he raised his daughter and never once said the phrase, the sky is blue, never said it. He taught her the colors like you normally teach a kid, reds, greens, blues, yellows, all the colors, but never taught her the sky is blue. And when she was 8 years old, he took her outside and said, Alma, what color is the sky? And she looked up and she's like, I don't know, white? She didn't see a blue sky like we see a blue sky. Curious. Another researcher by the name of William Gladstone, he looked at ancient Greek writing, specifically Homer's The Iliad and Homer's The Odyssey, right? We had to read these, eighth grade, right? So he looked at these and went word by word, documenting the frequency of each word. This is basically data analytics before it was cool. And what he found is that in either of these ancient Greek texts, there was never once a mention of the color blue, not once. There's reds, there's lights, there's yellows, there's darks, there's greens, but never blue. In fact, there's a passage that said the sea was deep wine. Deep wine? That's not blue, right? That's not the right color. And so he realized that maybe there's something with the way that ancient humans could see blue or couldn't see blue, which brings us to Lazarus Geiger, another researcher who looked at other ancient human texts. He looked at the ancient Hebrew text, the ancient Quran. He looked at ancient Hindu texts, right? Ancient Aztec texts, ancient Chinese texts. Never once in any of these ancient texts was a mention of the color blue. And so it reinforces this idea. Ancient humans couldn't see blue, which is the wrong conclusion, right? Which brings us to Jules Davidoff, a modern day linguist. And he said there's something strange around this idea of blue. So he traveled to Western Africa, went to Namibia, and he met the Himba tribe. Now, these are modern Homo sapiens, right? The same species as us, genetically the same as us. They just don't have our language and they don't have our society. They're a nomadic tribe, right? And so he starts to build a language map, showing them a thing, getting their word for it, getting our word for it, right? Kind of building a language map. And when he gets to colors, things get very interesting. He shows them green and they say, oh, that's buru. And then he shows them green, but we would call it light green. And they say that's dambu. They have another word for a shade of green. And they shows them another shade of green, what we call dark green, another modifier. They have a different distinct word, zuzu. And then he shows them blue. And they say, you've already showed us that, that's buru. They don't have a word for the color blue. So he sat them down in front of a computer to do an experiment, which kind of freaked him out. And he wanted to figure this thing out with the idea of blue. So just so you know, my bachelor's degree from Arizona State University, go Sun Devils, is in graphic design. So this image is too blurry, it's not clear enough, it's not good enough for me. So I actually took this into Photoshop and extracted the exact color values to reproduce this test for you. So this is exactly what they saw, looking at a computer just like you are. And he said to them, please point to the one square that's different. And they like squinted their eyes, and they kind of furrowed their brows and said, they're all the same. There's none different. They could not see the one square that's different. Now, if by chance there's any himbo watching this class, this is different. This is the one square that's different. Remember, they don't have a word for the color blue, so they were not able to see the distinction between green and blue. But remember, they have three different words for three different shades of green. So meaning in their language, they have more distinction in green. So say, okay, try this color test. Point to the one square that's different. And they got it right every single time, as quickly as you would have picked out the blue square in the last test. Now, if you think that there's something wrong with this and you're squinting your eyes and leaning into your computer, you're experiencing exactly what they experienced in the last color test, right? And they got this one as clearly as you got the last one. Now, as it turns out, this one is in fact a slightly different color. And if I bring all the swatches together, you can see the outline of that one square because it is in fact a different color. But the real lesson here is that without distinction, we can't even know what we're missing. We can't even know what we're missing. Now, at this point, people are like, oh, that's very interesting, but what does this have to do with anything? So I'll tell you a personal story to really help round this out. Okay. One of my jobs around the house is to take out the garbage. And in Phoenix, where I live, the trash truck comes Thursday morning, which means Wednesday afternoon, I'm supposed to take out the garbage. But I usually forget because I'm a little disorganized sometimes. And I hear the trash truck the next street over and I run around the house like crazy, getting all the trash cans out to the dumpster to the curb just in time. And I will admit I've missed a couple of times. Fair, right? Now, one Thursday afternoon, my wife comes up to me and says, Eric, I've got a pet peeve I want to talk about with you. I'm like, ooh, pet peeve. Oh, okay, that's our code for I'm mad, but intentionally not angry. And she says, okay, you know the downstairs bathroom trash? You never put it away when you're done with it. I'm like, well, never's a pretty strong word, but I hear what you're saying. I'll work on it. So the next Thursday rolls around and I hear my wife's voice in my head, put away the downstairs bathroom trash. And so as I'm running around the house like crazy, I put it right between the toilet and the sink, right where it goes. And at this point, like a chest puffed out, I'm a good man. I remembered, I did the right thing, right? I'm very proud of myself. And she comes up to me that afternoon and says, Eric, I thought we talked about this. I'm like, oh, what did I do this time? She said, you didn't put away the downstairs bathroom trash again. And I'm like, yeah, I did. And she's like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, let's go look. And she's like, yeah, let's go look. Right. And so I walk in very like indignant and I point, I'm like, see? And she walks in behind me and she's like, see? And then she gives me a distinction. She said, Eric, did you realize that I bought this trash can, which is perfectly sized to fit between the toilet and the sink like this? And you keep putting it in like this. And when you do it and sticking out, the kids will kick it, knock it over, spilling out the contents. And I'm usually the one to pick it up. Oh, I never knew that there was a right way to do it. So never thought there could have been a wrong way to do it. Right. And so I thought get it in the right space and put it away, but she meant something completely different. Now, pause here. There might be two reactions to this. Reaction number one, geez, your wife needs to lighten up. To which I say, don't talk about my wife. Second reaction, yeah, you tell him, girl, you get it, right? Anyway, it takes zero extra effort for me to put it in the correct way, and it makes a meaningful difference for somebody else. Instead, what we usually do is say, oh, you're just too sensitive. You need to get over it. It literally makes no difference in my life, right? Whether I do it one way or the other. So why not do the thing that makes the other person feel good, right? But here's the thing. Without distinction, people make common sense errors. So to her, I was making a common sense error. When you think about this idea of common sense errors, what does that mean? Right? That means that she can so clearly see something that I can't see. She could see the blue square and I didn't even know that there was a blue square to be seen. So is it a lack of common sense or is it a lack of distinction? If you recognize that without distinction, people will make common sense errors, What it means is that you see something or you know something that they don't know. And if the only things in life we can learn are things that we don't yet know, and you recognize that you know something that they don't, it's not their fault. It's your opportunity, right? And so instead of recognizing it as an opportunity, what we usually do is we employ this phrase, how could you possibly, right? How could you possibly not know that? How could you possibly see it that way? Or some derivative of how could you possibly, sometimes we'll say, I don't know, or I don't understand. So I don't know why anyone would, or I don't understand how you could. Right? Now, the subtext of all of these phrases are very clearly communicated. The subtext is you're an idiot. Now, we usually don't say that in polite conversation out loud, right? But we think it all the time. You're an idiot. How could you possibly? How do you not have that common sense? This is common sense. Saying it's so clear, you should be able to know. If you were intelligent at all, you'd be able to see it. And this is why people get defensive when you say that phrase, how could you possibly? I don't know why you would do that, right? All right, brings me to my next principle here called perception versus reality. And so it comes to this idea, this phrase that we hear all the time, perception equals reality. Well, I want to let you know from the very beginning that this is not true. Perception does not equal reality. This is not true. If you don't believe me, let's look at the dictionary definitions. So perception is defined as a way of understanding or interpreting something. And reality is the state of things as they actually exist, rather than as they may be perceived or might be imagined. I'm going to highlight something here, rather than as they may be perceived. So literally in the definition of reality, it says not perception, right? But then people say, okay, Eric, I understand dictionary definitions, whatever. But my perception is my reality. What does that mean? That means that my perception is the way I believe it to be. My perception is my worldview. My perception is my truth, right? And what you see here, and when I say truth, I say truth in quotes because I don't mean fact. I mean that if I perceive that it's cold, I'm going to behave, I'm going to interact with the world as if it's cold. If I perceive that it's warm, I'm going to interact or behave as if it's warm, right? Or if I perceive that there are 6 steps on this flight of steps when there's only 5 in reality, right? My belief that there's a 6th step does not change the reality of the stairs. No new step manifests from that, no. But what it does do is it changes my behavior. I step as if there is one more step. And I do the kind of the horse step, you know, if there's a phantom step, you think it's there, right? It changes your behavior. And that's the important thing, is that perception guides all of our behavior. And so it's not that perception equals reality. Rather, it's that perception which guides all our behavior or engages all of our memories. Perception is more important than reality, right? And so when you think about this, it's very important to understand that when you interact with the world differently than other people do, right? Our first reaction is 1, I'm right, 2, they're wrong, and 3, I'm certain. And it's really important to understand that your perception is not always their perception, because our perceptions are based on our experiences, our learning, right? And the way in which our brains individually work. And so we engage in things differently. So for example, if I were to show you this shoe, what colors are in this shoe? Let me know what colors. I'll open up the poll. Let me know what colors. Is this shoe gray and teal, or is this shoe pink and white? If you haven't yet logged in, go ahead and log into the poll everywhere, pollev.com/EricMBailey422, and engage in the poll everywhere. All right. Looks like teal and gray is leading the way. Oh my gosh, overwhelming majority of folks say it's teal and gray. I'm a pink and white person. So I see pink and white is lagging behind. No worries, pink and white folks. Okay. So as it turns out, a couple more people are still filling it out. Fantastic. Right now, of those that are entering in the poll, we have 11 people who say that the shoe is teal and gray, and we have 2. I'll add 3. 3 of us say that it's pink and white. Oh, goodness gracious. I hate when that happens, right? But here's the thing. What is it? What is the shoe really? But when you think about this, right, your perception is not their perception, right? Now, as it turns out, the shoe is actually pink and white. And so if you are not on team pink and white, I'm sorry, you're so wrong. I'm just kidding. Don't worry, you'll be redeemed in a moment. All right. But it's important to understand that as we do this process, what do we say to someone who perceives things differently, right? How could you possibly? All these people who see this as gray and teal, how could you possibly see it that way? For all the gray and teal people looking at us on the pink and white side, how could you possibly? As it turns out, I've actually taken this into Photoshop, and every area that I see so clearly as pink, all this area is so clearly pink, I took it into Photoshop, and it's actually, all the pixels are actually gray. So if you perceive gray and teal, you're actually perceiving the actual pixels that are being projected to your eyes. If you see this as pink and white, what you're doing is you recognize this is a poorly shot photo and it's kind of bathed in greenish blue light. And your brain is actually extracting that and filtering it out, and you're left with the pink and white shoe, right? Which is right, really doesn't matter. But the important thing is that your perception is not their perception, all right? Now, the last thing I want to kind of run through here is this idea of the distinction between purpose and process. So purpose is the result or the why, and process is the method or the how, right? So as it turns out, I am an introvert. I'm going to explain this with a personal story because I love to tell personal stories if you couldn't tell. Now, my wife is not an introvert, not so much an introvert. Right? If you don't know what it means, introverts are people who gain energy in solitude. And yes, I speak for a living and I'm an introvert. Introverts can speak. Let's all get over that. My wife's the CFO of our company, and she's on her computer doing whatever a CFO does, right? All the time. And let's say it's pre-COVID time and it's date night. We've got babysitting lined up. What do? Well, I've been facilitating all day and I'm exhausted. And she's been on her computer by herself all day and she needs to get out. So she wants to go dancing. And I don't want to go dancing, but she really, really wants to go dancing. And I really don't want to go dancing. You're embarrassed. You don't want to take me dancing. No, it's not that. I just don't want to go dancing. Right. So we find ourselves in the middle of a debate. Now, the interesting thing with the debate is when we debate, we typically debate process or method, not purpose, not results, not why we care. We end up debating the rightness or wrongness of ideas. And so what we need to do is we need to create an alignment of purpose. We need to look for common desired results. And the way in which to do this is ask yourself 2 questions. Question number 1, what do I truly want? Now, if you ask yourself this question and the answer to the question is, I want to win, just shut up. Just stop talking. Whatever fallout happens from stopping a conversation short is not as bad as making them a loser. Because if you win, they lose. I promise you, your team will not be better for having a loser in it. The conversation is not better for having a loser. I mean, have you ever been in a debate or argument and someone just beat you over the head with facts and logic and really made you feel like a loser? Do you usually at that point say, oh, thank you for making me a loser. Now I will join your opinion? No, that's not how it works. If you want to be effective with people, don't make them losers. All right. If you find that you want to win, just stop talking, calm yourself down, and recognize what it is that you truly want. Now, this idea of winning and losing, right? This is actually built into our DNA because you don't have to outrun the bear to survive. You don't. You just have to outrun the other guy. And if you can outrun him, you survive and pass on your DNA, right? Competition, winning and losing is built into our survival. And so when you ask yourself this question, check that, right? Am I trying to win here? Now, what do I truly want in this situation? Spend time with my wife. I want to be in a quiet environment, right? Netflix was the first idea that I thought of that would get me those things. It's not the only way, which is the first thing I thought of, right? Second question, what do they truly want? And this one's hard, especially when you're at kind of elevated emotional states, right? But if you can't figure it out, ask them. And I want you to write this question down. If everyone asked this question on a daily basis, we would fundamentally change our world, fundamentally, all right? Why are you so passionate about your position? Now, this question is intentionally phrased this way. 1, we're talking about your position, so we're acknowledging that there's a difference of opinion, right? Why are you so passionate? Passionate is a word associated with strong emotion, but more importantly, positively charged strong emotion. So why are you so passionate about your position? What I'm asking you is, don't give me the facts and figures of why you believe you're right, but I want to know the humanity underneath it. That fundamentally changes it. So I asked my wife, why are you so passionate about your position? And she said, okay, well, I want to be out of the house. I want to be among people, and I want to spend time with you. That's it. That's what she truly wants, right? That's what she truly wants. And the interesting thing is when you understand what they truly want, and then you share what you truly want, you can see the results underneath it. So I want to spend time with her. She wants to spend time with me. I want to be in a quiet environment. She wants to be out of the house among people, right? All these different things all put together. Can we find a creative solution that's out of the house among people in a quiet environment together? Yeah, there's like a million different solutions. So we end up going to the movies, right? Which is wonderful, and watch a movie about dancing, right? But after a couple of hours of watching a movie, my energy restored a little bit. We both felt satisfied. We felt good about it. So we walked around, sat down, had ice cream at Cold Stone, and then started talking. Well, she was talking, I was listening, right? But here's the thing: almost any debate can be solved by finding mutual purpose. But we don't do that, do we? We stay up at the level of trying to prove we're right. Only when we let go of the belief that our idea is the one true right idea can we actually slowly start getting to solving problems. Now, as it turns out, this idea of how could you possibly, or I don't understand why anyone, right? These are very judgmental questions. Right? We want to fight, we want to prove people wrong, we want to win. And I want to give you something very powerful that can fundamentally change this. So instead of saying, I don't know, or I don't understand, you can change these judgmental phrases to something in radical curiosity by just appending 4 little words. And those words are, but I want to. I don't understand why you did it that way, but I want to. I don't know why you did that, but I want to. I don't know why anyone would do such a thing, but I want to. And you put yourself in a place of radical curiosity. You put yourself in a place where you can understand them. And if you've ever been understood in this world, it feels unbelievably good. And we spend so much time engaging with each other without actual understanding. All right. Now, I know I tend to teach kind of like drinking from a fire hose. I give you a lot of information in a very short period of time. Sorry, not sorry. But I don't need you to be an expert at all of this. But what I do want you to do is I want you to be aware of these concepts. There's a lot more concepts if you want to dive into them deeper, but I want you to have awareness. And this is the last principle I'll talk with you about, the power of awareness. So awareness is a very, very powerful thing. All right. In this image, there is something to be seen. Now, when you see it, I want you to let me know in the poll, let me know when you see it. Just say, I see it. Now, it's not going to be unambiguous. It'll be perfectly clear when you see it, right? This thing will be perfectly clear. It's not a pebble or a rock or a smiley face or it's something that does not belong here at all, right? I'm gonna give you a couple of hints because I can't finish until everyone sees it. All right. The first hint is the thing you're looking for is a cigar. There is a cigar hiding in the middle of this image. Does that help anybody get it? All right. Helps a couple of people. Fantastic. All right. Second hint, I'm going to drain all of the color out of the image and just leave the brown cigar in the middle. Does that help anybody? I see a few more people. Fantastic. If you still don't see it and you're still too embarrassed to say so, it's right here. There's a cigar. Now, I'm about to put the image back the way it was before when you couldn't see it. And the crazy thing about awareness is that once you see it, you can never not see it. And so you're going to go about your day and you're going to see the illusion of certainty. You're going to see the Apple logo. You're going to see perception is more important than reality. You're going to hear or maybe even say, how could you possibly, right? You're going to see people debating and arguing, right? You're going to see all of this. And when you see these things, because now you have awareness to them, I want you to say, there's more left for me to learn. And if you want to keep learning, feel free to grab a signed copy of my book, The Cure for Stupidity, Using Brain Science to Explain Irrational Behavior at thecureforstupidity.com. But armed with all of this, I want you to now believe that there is goodness in the people of the world. And so now armed with all of this, you can go and you can be the good. Thank you so much. If you want to talk more about this with me, feel free to contact me. This is my personal email address, all of my socials. Feel free to stalk me or harass me on social media by saying, Eric, what did you mean by this? Because I'm all about the ongoing dialogue.
Thanks, Eric. That was great. We have a question. Do you have a couple minutes left in your schedule for a Q&A?
Plenty of time.
Okay, fantastic. Maybe you could go off screen share so that people can see you.
Yes.
And here we go. Do you feel that there is a way to increase patience in situations where high expectations are not met frequently? Should we reduce expectations?
Well, if you want to reduce frustration, reducing expectations is a way to do that. That is one method. Another method is be clearer about the expectations. A lot of times when people are engaging with people, we have a perception of what I meant when I said this. And when expectations aren't met, what you can do is you can say, okay, when I said this, what did you hear? Right? Kind of debriefing situation without the kind of the feeling that they've done something wrong. But if you understand this idea of perception and reality, what you say or do matters less than what they hear or feel. And so when you understand this, the onus of communication is on the communicator or the leader. And so what you want to do is you want to be, I understand, okay, when I say these things, what are you hearing? And be very clear. Okay, so when I say this, you understand that this, and they repeat it back. Yes, I understand this. It seems so elementary and so awful to go through the first couple of times, but it will pay off dividends in the long run.
That's exceptional. I'm over here nodding if you saw me. Here's the second. Well, I have a question to kind of build off that. We've been hearing, and this is actually fascinating, throughout this week, I have been shocked how many panelists and speakers have been talking about the power of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
There is an awareness of this skill, maybe not being prevalent in some people's EQ. Talk to us a little bit about how to work on that. And it's because it's becoming mandatory
Yes.
in our world in general, let alone in business, and then also maybe leadership in regards to empathy.
So I have a unique spin on empathy, right? So there's actually this psychological phenomenon called the empathy gap. And the empathy gap is essentially whether or not you're an empathic or empathetic person, if you perceive, back to perception, if you perceive that we're on different teams, then I actually won't experience empathy in the same way I would as if there were no team definitions at all. And so perfect example is this past fall, there's going to be political examples, and I'm going to prey on both teams equally. But this past fall, right, I don't know if you noticed, but there's this virus going around the world, right, this global pandemic happening. And we know that's very deadly, right? There's, I think, 2.8 million citizens of this planet have perished in some way due to this pandemic, at least that many. And that's a big deal. So we wouldn't ever wish this virus on anybody, right? Knowing it's probably not going to kill most of us if we ever get it, but we wouldn't ever wish it on somebody. Well, this past fall, the president of the United States contracted the virus and people celebrated. So a human contracted this potentially very deadly virus and people celebrated. Why? Because they perceive that they're on different teams. Fast forward a couple of months, the president-elect of the United States broke his ankle, right? If you've ever broken a bone, it's not a fun thing. You don't wish that on anybody. But the president-elect of the United States broke his ankle and people celebrated. Why? Because they perceive they're on different teams. And this empathy gap is something that's really, really important to watch out for. So if you ever have a clear delineation of us and them, or if you ever say they did this, just be aware that what follows that is this empathy gap. And so more often than not, the reason it's difficult for us to engage in empathy is because we've actually created these artificial group boundaries that there's us and there's not us. So there's management level and the frontline level, or there's the red team versus the blue team, or Sun Devils and Wildcats or whatever, right? And we keep this us versus them. And what we want to do is find ways that we can identify new boundaries that we are all on the same team, which kind of goes back to this idea of winning and losing. If someone loses, are we better off? Probably not.
Seems to me, if I take that and use it in a business situation or maybe even personal, it has a lot to do with trust. Yes. and also personal, like brand, and what you were saying earlier of like what you want. So if we wanted to be a leader in leveling the playing field, and or if we are a leader in a company and we do not want this discord, what's your advice?
So the first thing to do when we talk about trying to heal some of these problems, these big issues that may be underlying, I'm going to kind of take a tangent off that for a second. I do a lot of work on diversity, equity, and inclusion around the country with police, with frontline folks, with all different backgrounds, and I do a lot of work on that. And I ask people in my sessions, have you or do you know somebody who has experienced racism or some other kind of discrimination? And based on the amount that we don't talk about discrimination at work, you would imagine the number to be less than 50%, right? You kind of imagine. As it turns out, the numbers I usually get are between 93 and 100% of the people that I ask have or know someone who has experienced discrimination of some sort. And so when you think about that, and we're not talking about it, where almost all of our populations experience this thing and we're not talking about it. one of the things to answer your question, one of the things we want to do is we want to acknowledge that these hurts or these issues are happening or have happened. And a lot of people say, well, don't talk about it because it's going to reinforce the divisions. You don't go to a doctor and say, hey, I'm hurting here. And the doctor says, hey, don't talk about it, just get better. The doctor says, let's diagnose it. Let's explore it. Let's see what's really going on. And so now we have a path to heal it. And so when we talk about how do we engage in these sorts of conversations at work, well, be open, be vulnerable. If you're afraid you're going to make a mistake or say the wrong thing, say, you know what? I may say the wrong thing, but I really want to engage in this conversation. If I make a mistake, please let me know. Call me out and I will say I'm sorry and I will learn from that. Right? But that showing up with that kind of level of vulnerability, you don't have everything figured out. But the goal is to understand the humanity, right? So that's one way we can approach that in the workplace.
That's fantastic. I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with that fear of saying the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you consult with companies, how does this information translate into actionable business advice?
Absolutely. So when you think about when I ask people, what is the worst part about being a manager or a leader or a boss? The number one answer, and again, I do this poll all over the country, the number one answer is dealing with people. If I didn't have to deal with people, I would love being a boss, right? And then I ask a follow-up question and say, okay, what's the best part about your job? And they say, well, it's the people I work with. So how can it be the people is the best part and the worst job or worst part? Well, it's because it's not all people, it's those people. And as soon as I say those people, there's someone who popped into your head, right, Kate? And so when you think about this, when you think about those people, all of these issues that we've talked about, all these principles of human understanding, right? They lack common sense, or they don't see things the way that I see things, or they're not engaged in the way that I'm engaged. All of these, what we want to do is want to give them the benefit of humanity. They are human. And what we typically want to do is we say there's something wrong with them. They're stupid. They're an idiot. They're whatever. But if we get into an argument with somebody, or we have corrective action or something's happening with them, our first thought is there's something wrong with them. What if our first thought was, why would a rational, logical person do or say this thing? And when you ask yourself this question, and again, kind of getting to why you're so passionate about your position, what you end up doing is you end up empathizing with them. You actually end up getting inside of it. And empathy comes from the Greek groups en and pathos, right? So getting inside of their experience, inside of their suffering. And when you do that, you engage with them on a completely different level. And so when we talk about, how do we engage in actionable business advice, is identify those people that drive you nuts. Identify what drives you nuts about them and try to figure out where the humanity is in those behaviors, right? What is their drive? Perfect question we ask all the time is, what is the crusade they're on, right? And doing that really helps change the way you show up for them.
I was given this advice I was given early on in my career about when I was young and I was intimidated by executive team members. I was fresh out of college, and I was given this feedback or this advice about take them off the pedestal in your mind and look at them eye to eye. They're just people. And so when I started thinking about that, just as a personal antidote of like, okay, well, that is my boss, the CEO of the company, yes, all of those things. And also he is a person and, can contract a virus and, our blood's the same color and, and whatever else, and is a father and a son and a daughter and a brother. So humanizing is wonderful. We have one more question. Actually, there's two now. Great way to think about building stronger teams. What do you see as the influence of personality types in approaching things like this in the manner you're suggesting?
Okay, I've got a lot to say about personality types, so I'll just touch on it. First and foremost, personality types are great for understanding the humanity of someone that doesn't operate in the world the same way you do. So my wife and I, introvert, extrovert, right? So we've done Myers-Briggs, et cetera. And it's great for understanding that. The caution I want to give people is what personality types sometimes do is it segregates us into an us and a them. And when we do that, what happens is like, oh, you're an extrovert, you probably want this, or you're an introvert, you're probably too shy to engage in this, or I know your personality type doesn't like this. So just be aware of that. So understanding personality types at the level of understanding the humanity of somebody else or getting some empathy of the way in which someone else may see the world is powerful. But if we lean on it too much, what happens is we start to segregate and then prejudge. People will say, "Oh, Eric, you're an introvert." Oh, there's no way you're an introvert because you speak for a living, right? Because they've boxed introverts into not being able to speak out in groups of people, right? But that's which isn't true. We can all operate outside of our preferences. I'm a disorganized person, but guess what? I'm very organized when it comes to my calendar, right? And so personality types is important to understand, but we want to make sure that as we do it, we're doing it to build empathy and engage with these sorts of things and see how different people would engage in different situations, different communication situations.
Yeah, I hear you saying use it as a tool to reinforce humanity, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or to understand differences. That's awesome. Okay, last question we have with you. Isn't losing all the time the thing you want to avoid over making sure that no one is losing? Losing doesn't seem preventable. Don't stronger rats intentionally lose 30% of the time when wrestling weaker rats?
Interesting. So one thing is the characterization. Just because there's a really clear distinction is that when I say don't win, what I'm saying is try to let go of this idea of competition, right? So stronger rats, weaker rats, fighting, whatever, that's still competition. So I'm saying don't make them a loser. What I'm not saying is you lose. But what I'm saying is if you can find out why you feel compelled to compete, right? And when in this situation in almost any debate, it's a perfect example. So we have the wall, right? The wall, the southern border wall. It's a big debate in our country for the last 5 years or so. And so what is a debate? And so I spend a lot of time asking people on all sides of all arguments. This is one of the benefits of doing my job is, why are you so passionate about your position? And what I find is people who say build the wall, the number one thing that I hear underneath, right? Why are they so passionate? They say, we want national security. And can't we all agree national security is a good thing? Yeah, of course. People say don't build the wall. What's the number one reason? Respecting humanity and fiscal responsibility. Well, can't we all agree those are good things? Yeah. And so what we're doing, instead of trying to say my idea is right, yours is wrong, win, lose, what we want to do is change our perspective and say, where's the humanity under your argument? The goal here of me is to understand you, not to prove you wrong. We should be fighting to understand each other more instead of fighting to be the most right. And that's what I mean about you don't always want to go and say, okay, I'm ready to lose. I want to lose today. It's not about losing, right? I mean, you're not going to change your opinion because someone convinced you with their facts, right? They beat you over the head with facts. It's not how it works, right? What we end up doing is we end up digging our heels in deeper and giving our own facts, right? So if you kind of let go of this desire to win or not lose, what you end up doing is you end up engaging with them on a different level.
Okay, there's one more question that snuck in here, so we're just going to do it.
Do it.
Probably from a fellow introvert. I'm judging again here. I haven't learned anything, I guess. How do you deal with the fatigue of being on for so much of the day?
Okay, so first and foremost, this is an ongoing process for me and my family. But in the age of COVID, so I used to fly like around the earth 4 times every year, the equivalent of air miles, right? And it was wonderful for me because I would do a presentation, then I'd sit in the airport for an hour or two, and then I'd sit on an airplane for an hour or two, and then I'd drive home for half an hour, and all of a sudden I was good. But in the age of COVID, I don't have to travel. So I'm literally back to back to back. So this morning I did an interview on Business Insider, and then I went to a 3-hour workshop with an organization in Phoenix, kind of team building facilitation. And then I went to a 1-hour keynote, and then I had a quick bite to eat, and then I'm here. And so literally just packed on top of each other, just giving, giving, giving. So at the beginning of my marriage, my wife did not understand the difference of extroverts and introverts. And she could not understand why I was so tired on certain days. And so eventually what we ended up doing was we ended up actually carving a space in my closet. We have a decent sized walk-in closet. And so I would literally, when I would come home, I would have a chair in there. I would sit down and I would close the door and I would just kind of be in the silence, listening to my own heartbeat, just kind of thinking through my thoughts. Nowadays, I'm in my office, my green screen studio, and I'll give a little peek behind the curtain here. It's a virtual background here. But yeah, I'm in my green screen studio. And so sometimes what I'll do is I will just lay on the floor, right? I'll just lay on the floor and right under my desk, and I'll just be quiet for a few minutes. And we've actually have an agreement with my family that, okay, after a very long day, I will communicate that I'm tired or having a hard time. Because before, as an introvert, I would just expect everyone to know, and they would not know. And Daddy, it's like, oh, it's wonderful, but hard. But I've learned to communicate the times that I'm exhausted. Like when I'm done here, I'm going to go and say, hey, everyone, I need quiet time. And then also know that when my family really needs me, all of a sudden, I may have to find extra energy to give them what they need. And so we've actually kind of this really cool communication about energy levels, et cetera.
That's awesome. I also have a closet chair. so, so there you go. Thank you so much for your time, Eric. This has been really enlightening. If you have time and after you've rested, there's some more interaction on Hoova where people would love to ask you some questions. We've tweeted a bunch of great things. Thank you. Thank you. Be well. And we look forward to, we're thankful to have you in the community, and we look forward to seeing you in person again.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Kate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.